The year was 1952, and Harlem's winter came down like it had a score to settle. Frost clung to the windows of old buildings, and the wind from the Hudson didn't just chill, it cut. On 125th Street, people pulled scarves higher and walked faster, breath fogging the air like smoke signals from another world. But several stories up in a Sugar Hill penthouse, things were different. Warmth lived in the walls. The scent of polished wood, fine cigars, and something newer, something softer, floated gently through the space. That softness had a name. Elise. Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson stood by the tall window in his study, watching the city that both needed him and feared him. He was 47. No one in Harlem said his name loud in pool halls unless they wanted quiet. And in churches? The same. Name got prayers of thanks, mostly during turkey season. He'd outlasted Dutch Schultz, shrugged off the feds more than once, and didn't scare easy. People thought of him as stone. Cold, carved, immovable dot, but stone cracks. He turned from the window and looked at the silver-framed photo on his desk. His daughter, 8 months old. Eyes wide like she could see the whole future and still be surprised by it. That picture held him longer than a mirror ever could. Elise wasn't just his daughter. She was his second chance. Proof that something small and perfect could come from a man who had spent most of his life choosing the hard way. When he held her, the sound of sirens, arguments, and deals being whispered into payphones just disappeared. He wanted her world to be better, softer, safer. That's why he brought in Miss Adelaide. He stepped out of the study and made his way down the hallway, the thick carpet swallowing the sound of his footsteps. He adjusted his tie in the mirror, the reflection giving back a version of himself that was always ready for a sit-down or a standoff. He had a meeting at the flashing room in 20 minutes, but he wasn't leaving without saying goodnight. The nursery door was closed. Bumpy paused, hand hovering over the handle. Then came the sound, not new, not surprising, but still sharp, crying. Not the usual baby whimper. This was sharp, panicked, raw. The kind of sound that didn't just tug at a parent, it yanked. His brow tightened. He opened the door. Street lamp outside cast a faint orange glow through the window. Inside, shadows stretched and moved across the crib and walls. Miss Adelaide stood stiffly at the crib, her white uniform too crisp for bedtime. Her posture straight as a ruler, like she belonged more in a hospital wing than a home. Her bun was tight, her face locked in that way some people call professional, but never warm. She came highly recommended, someone who'd worked for men with their names etched on office doors in marble. Having her in his home meant something. It said Elise would grow up in a world that didn't start with side eyes and suspicion. She'd have what the Rockefellers gave their daughters. Miss Adelaide, Bumpy said, voice low, stepping into the room. She jumped. Not much, but enough. Turned fast. Stood between him and the crib for half a second too long. He saw something flicker in her face. Was it fear? Annoyance? Gone too quick to catch. She smiled, the kind of smile that says, everything's fine, even when it's not, Mr. Johnson, she whispered, finger to her lips. Please, I just got her settled. She's had a difficult night. He stepped closer. The crying stopped. The second he spoke, what followed was worse, short, uneven breathing. A baby trying to recover from something she couldn't explain. She sounds scared. Bumpy said quietly, moving to the crib. Elise was lying still, too still. Her fists were clenched tight around her blanket, knuckles pale. Her cheeks red, damp with tears. He leaned over. She didn't smile. Didn't move. Just flinched, barely, like her body braced for something it had learned to expect. Small, quick. But it reached him like a punch he never saw coming. Hey there, princess, he said gently, brushing her cheek. His hand tried to steady what his gut had already stirred up. Her eyes searched his face, then flicked to the woman behind him. "She's got colic, Mr. Johnson," Adelaide said, stepping in smoothly. Her tone clipped, assured. "I've mentioned it to Mrs. Johnson. Some children are simply more sensitive. It's digestive." "Nothing serious." Bumpy didn't answer, just kept his hand on his daughter's face, feeling the heat in her skin. And the fear still sitting behind her eyes, he nodded once. Not to her words, to himself. Then looked back at Adelaide. "Go rest." "I'll sit with her a bit," he said, voice quiet but final. There was a pause. Slight, but it hung in the air. "Of course," she replied. "Call if you need me." She left the room with steps too careful, like she knew someone was listening. Bumpy stayed by the crib for a long time. He didn't say much, just watched Elise breathe. Her little chest rose and fell, slower now. Her fists loosened, but she didn't close her eyes. Didn't fully settle. She didn't trust the quiet yet. Neither did he. Her skin felt cool, damp, but when Bumpy's fingers brushed her hairline just above her ear, he paused. It was wet, not from sweat, but soaked, like she'd just come out of a bath. His frown deepened, instincts kicking in. He touched the collar of her sleeper. Same thing, wet, not sweat damp, soaked through to the skin. "Why is she wet?" Bumpy asked quietly. He didn't look up, just kept staring at the fabric between his fingers. "She?" Adelaide answered quickly, the words already prepared. "As I mentioned earlier, she works herself into a state. Some children perspire heavily when they're overstimulated. It's quite common in sensitive infants." Bumpy rubbed his fingers together, then brought them to his nose. It wasn't sweat. It wasn't milk. It smelled faintly of tap water and something else. Chlorine, maybe. A chemical trace that didn't belong near a crib. "Change her," Bumpy said as he straightened up. His voice was low, steady. "I don't want her sleeping in wet clothes." "Hi." "Was just about to," Adelaide said, stepping forward as if to gently block his path from the crib. "But it would be better if you left now, sir. Your presence tends to excite her. She needs to learn to self-soothe. If you comfort her every time she cries, she won't learn emotional regulation." Bumpy looked at her, at the sharp line of her mouth, at the eyes that never softened, at her hands. Large, firm, no polish on her nails. He looked at those hands longer than he meant to. "She's a baby, Adelaide," he said, his voice dropping. "Just a bit more. A quiet storm forming. She doesn't need discipline. She needs care." "Discipline is care, Mr. Johnson," Adelaide replied smoothly, standing her ground. "Routine, structure, those are the safest things a child can feel. Now, if you'll excuse me, I do have a routine to maintain." Bumpy held her gaze. In any other room, with any other person, that tone would have earned consequences. But this wasn't a card game or a corner dispute. This was his home. And she was trusted, vetted, polished, endorsed by the kind of people who shook hands in City Hall and had chauffeurs waiting outside. He let it go, for now. "Good night." "Elise," he whispered, eyes still on the crib. He turned and walked out. Door clicked shut behind him, and with it came a feeling he couldn't shake. A knot that settled hard in his stomach. Colic, he thought, sweat. It didn't sit right. None of it did. Bumpy Johnson built his life on reading people. He could smell a lie before it reached his ears. He could tell when a man was bluffing with a losing hand or when a partner was holding something back. And Adelaide, she was holding something back. The next 3 days were slow, like moving through water. He found reasons to come home early, canceled meetings, left mid-sentence. He couldn't explain it, not even to himself. Something inside him pulled him back to that hallway again and again, standing outside the nursery door like a man waiting for a verdict. There was a pattern. Mornings were perfect. When May was around, Adelaide sang lullabies with grace. Took Elise out for walks in the stroller like royalty passing through the neighborhood. Folded baby clothes so neatly they looked. Ironed. Spoke gently, smiled often. Picture-perfect care. But when the light shifted in the afternoon, so did the air. Around 4 p.m., the change began. Elise would start with a soft cry, uncertain, questioning. Then it would rise, grow, until it became a scream that didn't sound tired or hungry. It sounded afraid. Bumpy started to notice it every day. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. On Tuesday, he sat in the living room with May. The radio was playing something smooth and slow, but all he heard were the muffled cries from down the hall. He put down the paper in his lap. The headlines meant nothing. "May," Bumpy said quietly, "that doesn't sound like gas. That's not a stomachache." May looked up from her knitting. Her eyes were tired. "Dark rings under them, deeper than usual. Adelaide says it's the witching hour," she replied. "Some babies have trouble settling in the evenings. She said we have to let her handle it. Otherwise, Elise won't bond with her." "I don't care about her bonding with the maid," Bumpy snapped, unable to hold it in. "I care that my daughter sounds scared." May lowered her hands. Her voice was soft, careful. "I took her to Dr. Williams yesterday," she said. Bumpy froze. "You did? And you didn't tell me?" "I didn't want to worry you unless there was something wrong," May replied. "He checked everything. No fever, no rashes, no bruises. Her stomach is soft. He said she's perfectly healthy." "And he agreed with Adelaide?" May nodded. "He said some babies are just more sensitive." Bumpy sat back. "Temperament," he repeated. The word didn't sit right. She was smiling 2 months ago, laughing. Now she flinches. "May, have you seen her flinch?" May's eyes welled. "I have. And it breaks my heart. But Adelaide says it's because we're tense. That Elise picks up on our energy. Between the indictment, the press, the surveillance outside. Maybe she does feel it, Ellsworth." Bumpy stood up. Paced to the window. He hated that idea. That somehow his world, his choices, had crept into her crib. That his sins were shadows in her nursery. It was the one thing he swore he'd protect her from. But maybe it was happening anyway. Or maybe. He turned back to May. Or maybe it's something else. The decision came on a Thursday. He came home at 2 p.m., unannounced. Slipped the key in quietly. No driver, no entourage. Just him and the silence of the apartment. May was at a charity lunch. The cook was in the kitchen, humming softly, not asking questions. The rest of the house was still, too still. He moved through it carefully, not with suspicion, with purpose. Something was coming, and he was done waiting to find out what it was. It was just Adelaide and Elise now, tucked away in the back rooms. Bumpy slipped off his shoes. He walked the hallway in socks, silent as a shadow. Every step was careful, focused. His senses were dialed up, not fear, but something close. Something protective. He reached the nursery door, closed from behind. He heard a voice, but not the sweet, sing-song voice Adelaide used around May. This one was different, low, cold, like something crawling under the floorboards. "You're a wicked, dirty little thing," she whispered. Crying again, always crying. "We have to wash it out. We have to wash the devil out of you." Bumpy stopped breathing. Wash the devil out. A floorboard creaked. Then, splash, not a gentle one. Sharp, followed by that sound. That awful, breathless gasp, like someone struggling to pull air through a closed throat. His hand hovered over the doorknob, shaking if he went in now, and it was nothing. Just water on her face, just a fussy bath. He'd look like he snapped. Like the gangster the papers warned about, overreacting, accusing the help. If there were no marks, no bruises, nothing physical, she'd say he imagined it. That grief and pressure were messing with his head. He needed more than a feeling. Needed proof. Bumpy pulled his hand back from the door, chest tight. He moved down the hallway and into the study. Picked up the phone with steady fingers that didn't match the storm inside him. "Get me Whispers," he said into the receiver. "Tell him to bring his tool bag and the German kit." Whispers arrived an hour later, slipping in through the service elevator like smoke. He was small, lean, and quick. Someone who could fix a jukebox or crack a vault, whichever was needed. But stepping into Bumpy's home, near his daughter, that was different. Personal, risky. "Boss," Whispers said as he set the bag on. "The desk. I need eyes in the nursery," Bumpy said. His voice was flat, not angry, not upset, just emptied out. "I think she's hurting the baby, but there are no signs. The doctor says she's fine." Whisper's face changed. "In there. World, there were unspoken rules, and hurting a child? That was one you didn't break. What do you want done?" "I need to see what happens when the door shuts," Bumpy replied. "And I need to hear it, but she can't know. If she hears a click or sees a wire, she'll stop. And I won't. Have proof." Whispers nodded once. From the bag he pulled out something odd, a stripped-down lens. All metal and glass, raw, exposed. "This is new," he said. "War surplus, recon lens, modified, silent shutter. It's not a movie camera. The motor would make noise. But this'll take a photo every 5 seconds for 10 minutes. Low light capable. Won't get every frame, but it'll get enough." "Where?" "Do we hide it?" Bumpy asked. "In the radio," Whispers said. "There's a big floor unit in the nursery. Still working?" "Yes." "Perfect. I'll mount the lens behind the speaker mesh. It can see through the weave. Sound passes, image too. Then I'll run a line hair thin through the baseboard, right into your study. I'll hook it to a headset. You'll hear everything. You hear something wrong, you go in. Do it," Bumpy said. "She's out walking the baby. We've got an hour." They moved fast. Bumpy kept watch in the hallway while Whispers opened the old console radio like a surgeon prepping a patient. Every move was precise. He removed the tubes, mounted the lens, adjusted the angle. The camera now stared out from behind the speaker cloth, invisible, but watching the wire ran like a whisper itself, tucked under the carpet, through a pinhole drilled in the wall and into Bumpy's study. By 3:30 p.m., it was done. Radio looked untouched. Inside, it was a witness. "The timer's manual," Whispers explained. He showed Bumpy a small hidden switch low on the radio side. "You flick this with your foot before leaving the room. 10 minutes of pictures. And the sound?" Whispers handed him a pair of heavy-duty military headphones. "Live. As long as the amp's on, you'll hear it all." "Go," Bumpy sighed. "Take the service elevator. I don't want her knowing you were here." Whispers packed up quick and neat. But before leaving, he paused at the door. "Bumpy, if she's doing what you think she's doing." "Go," Bumpy repeated. Whispers left. Bumpy sat alone in his study. The headphones rested on the desk, the wire from the wall curled like a fuse waiting to be lit. He stared at it, still, waiting, wishing. He didn't want to be right. He hoped the photos showed nothing but lullabies and tidy blankets. He hoped he'd been wrong, paranoid, overprotective, but Bumpy Johnson really hoped for what he knew wouldn't come at 4 p.m. The front door opened. He heard the stroller wheels roll in. Heard Adelaide's voice, light, breezy. Heard Elise. A small sound. Then a whimper as she was lifted out. From the study, He listened. "Home again," Adelaide announced. "And now it's time for our nap." Her voice shifted slightly. "Not cold, not yet, but firm. And there will be no fussing today, little one. Do you hear me? No fussing." Bumpy reached for the headphones. The sound came through soft but sharp, clear. The rustle of blankets, the click of crib rails. Adelaide's breathing, heavy, even. Not rushed. Not soft. He closed his eyes, and he listened. "We are going to behave," Adelaide said. Her voice sounded different through the headphones. Without the polished uniform, without anyone watching, it lost all warmth. It was flat, cold, like someone laying down rules, not offering care. Bumpy heard her footsteps move away from the crib. Then farther. Toward the kitchen. He heard the tap turn on. His chest tightened. Water. She returned moments later. The nursery door closed with a soft click. And then it began. Elise cried instantly, as if her body recognized the sound before her. Mine did. She knew what a closed door meant now. The cry wasn't tired. It wasn't fussy. It was sharp and frantic, the sound of fear breaking through a small chest. "Stop it," Adelaide snapped. "Stop that noise." The crying only grew louder, desperate, breathless. "You are a wicked girl," Adelaide hissed. "A noisy, wicked girl. You want to scream? You want to make noise?" Bumpy pressed the headphones tighter against his ears. Then he heard it, a splash. "We have to clean you," Adelaide whispered. "We have to wash the noise away." There was a wet, hollow sound, fabric hitting skin, water being poured. And then the sound that made Bumpy's heart drop out of his chest, that awful broken gasp, a choking, sputtering sound. A child. Struggling for air. The crying stopped, replaced by wet, panicked breaths. That was it. Bumpy tore the headphones off and stood so fast his chair slammed into the bookcase behind him. The room blurred. The planning vanished. The careful patience he'd built his life on disappeared. There was no mob boss now. Only a father. He ran down the hallway, feet slipping on rugs. He didn't reach for the knob. He drove his leg into the door. The wood splintered. The door flew open and slammed into the wall. The room was dim. Curtains drawn. Adelaide was on her knees beside the crib. In her hand was a porcelain pitcher. Elise wasn't being bathed. She wasn't being cleaned. She lay on her back, wrapped tight, unable to move. A damp cloth covered her face. Water spilled across it in steady pours. Adelaide froze. The pitcher slipped from her hand and shattered across the floor, water and porcelain spraying everywhere. She yanked the cloth away. Elise sucked in air, coughed, then screamed, a sound raw enough to cut straight through Bumpy. He stepped into the room. Something low and animal vibrated in his chest. Adelaide scrambled backward and fell against the rocking chair. "Mr. Johnson!" She shrieked. She was overheating. I was cooling her down. Bumpy didn't answer. He crossed the room and lifted Elise from the crib. She was soaked. Her hair stuck to her head. Her skin was pale around the mouth, flushed everywhere else. She clung to him, shaking, fingers digging into his shirt like she was afraid he'd disappear. He held her tight, shielded her face against his neck. Then he turned. "Explain," Bumpy said quietly. His voice didn't sound human. "Yes, it's a method," Adelaide stammered, backing away. "A European method. For sensitive constitutions." "You were forcing water over her face," Bumpy said. He took one slow step toward her. "You were making her stop breathing." No, I would never." Bumpy pointed toward the corner. "See the radio?" Adelaide followed his finger. "Just an old wooden console." "There's a camera inside it," Bumpy said, "and a timer. And a microphone in the wall." Her face was drained of color. I heard you, Bumpy said. I heard every word. And the camera just took picture after picture of you doing exactly what you said you weren't doing. Adelaide sank to the floor. The confidence was gone. The authority vanished. She cries so much, she whispered. It hurts my ears. It's the only way to make her stop. The water scares her. It makes her quiet. It makes her quiet. Bumpy repeated. He looked at her hands. He thought about the weeks his daughter had spent afraid. The way she flinched. The fear in her eyes every time this woman entered the room. Every instinct in him screamed to end it right there. But Elise was in his arms, and Elise was already terrified. If he lost control now, if he became what he was capable of becoming, he would scar her forever. He forced himself to breathe. Get up, Bumpy said. Adelaide sobbed. Please, I'll leave. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Get up, he roared. She scrambled to her feet. You stay here, Bumpy said. You don't. Move. You don't touch the door or the window. If you do, I'll come back, and I won't remember how to stop myself. He backed out of the room with Elise pressed to his chest. Closed the door. Locked it from the outside with the small key he carried. In the hallway. Bumpy stood shaking. Elise cried into his neck, and for the first time in weeks, he knew exactly why. It's okay, Bumpy whispered, kissing the top of Elise's damp head. It's okay. Daddy's here. The bad lady can't get to you now. But he had a problem. There was a woman locked in his nursery. He had evidence of what she did. But Bumpy Johnson wasn't just any father. He was one of the most well-known names in Harlem, and not for bedtime stories. If he called the police, they wouldn't just arrest Adelaide. They'd search the apartment. They'd find the safe. They'd find the cash. They'd find reasons to say he wasn't fit to be a father, and Elise? They'd take her. He couldn't risk it. And he couldn't take matters into his own hands, not with his baby still in the house, not with the spotlight already following him everywhere. He needed another kind of justice. He walked to the kitchen, just as May stepped through the back door, shaking out her umbrella. She smiled for half a second before she saw the soaked baby in his arms. She froze. Ellsworth? She asked, dropping the umbrella. What happened? Is she sick? No, Bumpy said, voice dry and brittle. She's not sick. He handed the baby to her gently. Take her, he said. Dry her off. Hold her close. What is this? May asked, confused, staring at Elise's wet clothes. Why is she the nanny? Bumpy said. Adelaide. What about her? He looked into his wife's eyes. He saw the softness that had carried him through so much. He knew what he was about to say would shatter something inside her. She wasn't giving her a bath, Bumpy said. Quietly. She was trying to silence her. May's arms stiffened. Her face went still. She was... What? She was pouring water over her face, Bumpy said, to stop the crying. May looked at Elise again, at the wet hair, the trembling hands. Then she looked at Bumpy. Where is she? May asked. Her voice was soft, but the softness was gone from her face, gone from her posture. She's locked in the nursery, Bumpy said. The cook had stepped into the hall now. Wide-eyed. May passed Elise to her. Take her to my room, she said. Lock the door. Turn on the radio. Don't come out until I say. The cook nodded and rushed away, cradling the baby. May turned to Bumpy. She straightened her skirt, took a deep breath. Give me the key, she said. May? Bumpy started. We have to be smart. I am being smart, she said, voice calm. You can't go in there. You're Bumpy Johnson. If you touch her, you lose everything. But me? She walked past him toward the hallway. I'm just a mother, she said softly. And no one tells a mother how to protect her child. Bumpy followed her silently. He handed her the skeleton key, and he knew, right then, Adelaide would have been better off facing the gangster, because she was about to face the mother. May Johnson stood in front of the nursery door, the key cold in her hand. Behind her, down the hall, the radio played faintly in the bedroom. Elise was safe. To the world, May looked composed, dressed perfect, hair immaculate, but Bumpy, standing in the shadows behind her, saw what others couldn't. He saw the tension in her shoulders, the white of her knuckles, the faint shake in her jaw. She was beyond anger. She was in something deeper, older. She didn't speak. She inserted the key. Click. The door creaked open. The nursery was dim. Only a streetlight cast lines across the walls through the blinds. It smelled like spilled water and something else. Fear. Adelaide stood near the window. Her hands were clasped, her posture stiff. When she saw May, her spine straightened further. She tried to collect herself. She smoothed her uniform. Her eyes scrambled to find control. Mrs. Johnson, she began quickly. There's been a misunderstanding. Mr. Johnson, he became agitated. He misread a perfectly safe medical method. May walked in. She didn't rush. Her steps were quiet, measured. She stopped 3 feet away. Her eyes scanned the room. The shattered pitcher, the soaked rug, the crib that should have been safe. Then she looked at Adelaide. A medical procedure. May repeated softly. Yes, Adelaide said, her confidence returning by degrees. Hydrotherapy. It's used to calm overactive children. They do it in Europe. I was just trying to help Elise settle. You were helping her? May asked, stepping closer. I was, Adelaide said. But she edged back slightly, bumping into the wall. She cries constantly, she continued. There's no discipline, no routine. She needs to learn boundaries. I was showing her. May smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You think. I'm stupid, she said softly, because I wear pearls, because I host fundraisers, because I hired you. You think I don't know what control looks like when it turns into cruelty? Mrs. Johnson, I am a professional. May moved. It was fast. One step, one motion. Crack. Her open hand met Adelaide's cheek with a force that silenced the room. Adelaide stumbled. Legs tangled. Legs tangled. She hit the floor, hard. A gasp escaped her. Lips. May stood over her, calm, steady. You're not a professional, she said quietly. You're a coward. Adelaide clutched her face. Her lip was split. Her eyes welled with tears. You struck me, she whispered. That's assault. I'll report this. I'll sue you. From the doorway, Bumpy watched in silence, arms crossed, still. He didn't move. He didn't need to. The door was open, but no one was leaving. May let out a dry laugh, no humor, just fury behind her breath. She crouched down on the soaked floor, the hem of her skirt darkening in the water without care. She reached out, gripped Adelaide's chin, and forced the woman to meet her eyes. You want to talk about the law? May said, her voice a low whisper. In this house, Adelaide, we are the law. You think the police are going to protect you? You think a jury's going to side with a woman who poured water over an 8-month-old baby's face? It wasn't drowning, Adelaide cried out. May's grip tightened. My husband has a recording, she said coldly. We have photographs. We have audio of you calling a baby wicked, of you pouring water over her face while she struggled to breathe. Do you know what happens to people like you in prison, Adelaide? Do you know how the others treat someone who harms a child? Adelaide went still. She looked past May toward Bumpy, still standing in the shadows, and finally understood she was trapped in a place where power didn't wear a badge. I didn't mean to, she whimpered. She just kept crying. The sound, I couldn't take it. I just wanted quiet. You had a reputation, May said, shoving Adelaide's face away. Now you have nothing. May stood and pulled the curtains shut, closing the room off from him. The world. Get up, she ordered. Adelaide rose, trembling. Ellsworth, May said without turning around. Bring the chair. Bumpy stepped forward and dragged the old wooden rocking chair to the center of the nursery, the one Adelaide had used like a throne. He set it down. Sit, May told her. Adelaide sat. Her white uniform was wrinkled, damp, and stained. She looked small now, diminished. May paced slowly. For 3 weeks, she said, her voice tight. You told me I was too soft, that I didn't know what I was doing, that my daughter's panic was my fault. She stopped. I looked at Elise's flinch, and I still let you convince me it was just colic. She leaned in close. Do you know what it feels like to trust someone with your child and find out they use that trust to break her? I'm sorry, Adelaide sobbed. Sorry. Doesn't fix it, May snapped. She turned to Bumpy. The photos. He handed her the stack of surveillance prints. Grainy, black and white. Clear enough. May flipped through them. Adelaide pouring water. Holding Elise down, a cloth in her hand. A nightmare caught frame by frame. She threw them into Adelaide's lap. Look at them, she said. Really look. Adelaide stared. Then curled in on herself, hiding her face. I'm sick, she choked out. I need help. You're not sick, Bumpy said from the shadows, his voice like steel dragging across stone. You're just yourself. This is who you are when no one's watching. May took a slow breath. They couldn't hurt her. A harmed white woman in their home would bring the whole city to their doorstep. But they couldn't let her walk out either, not without consequence. If she left on her own terms, she could twist the story, and the world might believe her version. They had to end this the right way. May walked to the writing desk, grabbed a pen and stationery, and returned. You're going to write a letter, she said. A full confession. You'll say you've been battling mental instability, that you acted out of compulsion, that you used water to silence a child, and you'll admit it was wrong. Adelaide shook her head. I can't write that. If I do, I'm finished. I'll never work again. That's the idea, May said. I won't, she whispered. Bumpy stepped forward, calm, unblinking. He walked to the radio and set his hand on it. Do you know who I am? He asked gently. I'm Bumpy Johnson. People say things about me, about what I do to people who lie. Most of it? Just talk. He reached into his pocket. Click. A small blade flicked open. He started cleaning his nails with it, slowly. But for someone like you, I might make an exception. Adelaide stared at the knife, then at Bumpy's face, then at the pen. Her hand shook as she picked it up and began to write. She wrote the truth. She admitted everything. The water, the fear, her own loss of control. When it was finished, she signed it with trembling fingers. May took the letter and folded it. Now here's how this ends, she said. You're going to walk out of here. You're going to go straight to the 28th precinct, and you're going to turn yourself in. Adelaide's face twisted in horror. But I gave you the letter, she cried. That was supposed to be enough. The letter is insurance, May said. Turning yourself in, that's justice. I'll never survive in jail, Adelaide sobbed. Just let me leave the city, please. May stepped forward and grabbed a handful of Adelaide's hair, pulling her head back. You don't get to negotiate, she said quietly. You don't get to disappear into another neighborhood and try this on someone else's child. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You are going to the 28th precinct, because if you're not through that door by midnight, my husband's rules won't protect you anymore. May walked to the table and picked up a pair of sewing scissors. She held them loosely. but with purpose. If you vanish, I'll find you, she said softly, and I will make sure you understand what fear really feels like. Adelaide looked at her and saw something final in her eyes. Do you believe me? May asked. Yes, Adelaide whispered. Then get up. Adelaide stood, grabbed her purse, and shuffled toward the door. Go, Bumpy said. She ran, fumbled with the locks, bolted into the hallway. Gone. Bumpy shut the door and locked it behind her. He turned back and saw May still standing in the nursery, the scissors in her hand, her grip so tight her knuckles had gone white. He stepped forward, took them gently from her. May, he said softly. I told her I'd hurt her, she whispered, still trembling. And I meant it, Ellsworth. I know, he said, wrapping her in his arms. You protected what matters. An hour later, the phone rang. It was the desk sergeant at the 28th. She came in, he said, crying, hysterical, said something about water and confessed. She's in a cell. May closed her eyes. Good, she whispered. Let her stay there. He's threatening a federal review of the precinct if we don't release her. Sergeant Amali said on the phone. Stall him, Bumpy replied. Give me 1 hour? Bumpy, you can't come down here, Amali warned. If you walk into the station, Sterling's going to point and say, There's your villain. I'm not going to the station, Bumpy said calmly. Just tell Mr. Sterling. If he wants to start pulling strings, maybe he should check his own closet first. He hung up. His rage didn't explode. It simmered, quiet, deep, and focused. They were flipping the narrative, turning the truth upside down, trying to make the villain a victim. He walked to the hidden safe behind the painting. Inside was everything he needed. First, the envelope of photographs, Elise, helpless in her crib, the nanny pouring water, the rag over her face. Undeniable. Then something else. A slim file with a typed label. Arthur Sterling. Bumpy had lived in this city too long not to know how people like Sterling worked. Lawyers in fine suits with polite manners and dirty secrets. He kept files on men like that. Not for revenge. For moments like this. He slipped both envelopes under his arm and called the driver. Bring the car, Bumpy said, and find out where Arthur Sterling eats lunch. Arthur Sterling was halfway through a martini at Delmonico's, a midtown steakhouse with dark booths and heavy curtains. He was drafting headlines in his mind. Nanny victimized by Harlem mob. He was already planning the press run when a shadow crossed his table. He didn't even look up at first. I'm expecting. Then he saw the man standing there. Charcoal suit, cane, fedora in hand. Bumpy Johnson. The restaurant went quiet. This wasn't Bumpy's kind of place. But the way he stood there, calm, dressed sharper than anyone in the room, made it feel like the whole building now belonged to him. Mr. Sterling, Bumpy said quietly. Mind if I join you? Sterling straightened. I have nothing to say to you, he said tightly. Your name came up in a kidnapping report. If you don't leave, I'll call the police. Bumpy smiled. A faint smile, measured. You could, he said, taking the seat across from him anyway. But then you wouldn't see what's in this envelope. He set a manila folder on the white linen. Sterling chuckled, trying to recover. A bribe? One bill, $500 an hour. Your street money doesn't impress me. It's not money, Bumpy said. He glanced at the stunned waiter. I'll have an iced tea. And bring Mr. Sterling another martini. He's going to want it. Sterling hesitated, eyeing the envelope. Bumpy didn't blink. Eventually, the lawyer opened it. The first photo. Adelaide leaning over the crib, cloth in hand. The second. Water pouring across the baby's face. The third. Elise flailing, pinned, eyes wide with panic. Sterling's skin lost its color. My God, He whispered. That, Bumpy said softly, is your client. That's who you're calling a victim. Sterling kept staring. He had no love for morality, but even he had limits. She told me she was calming the child. A procedure. I didn't know. Does that look like a bath to you? Bumpy asked. That's not a misunderstanding. That's cruelty. Sterling swallowed. You're going to go back to the station. Withdraw your motion. Advise her to plead guilty. Sterling straightened slightly, trying to recover ground. You took these photos without consent, illegally. They won't hold in court. Bumpy's laugh was quiet, cold. You think this is about a courtroom? He said. He reached into his coat and pulled out a second envelope. Let me show you what will hold. He slid it across the table. Sterling opened it. Inside, grainy black and white photos. Arthur Sterling, not with his wife. Not a crime. But not a secret he wanted shared. Sterling's hands trembled. This is blackmail, he said. This, Bumpy said, calmly sipping his iced tea, is negotiation. You can defend someone who hurt a child. Try to spin it. Try to win. He leaned in, voice low and steady. But if you do, those photos will go to your wife, your firm, and the morning papers. Sterling looked at the baby pictures again, then at his own, then at Bumpy. And finally, he realized he was done. Sterling folded the second set of photos, slid them into his pocket, and pushed the baby photos back across the table. She lied to me, he said, voice hollow. I'm withdrawing. I'll tell the precinct I have a conflict. Good choice, Bumpy said. Enjoy your lunch. Sterling left in a rush dot at the 28th precinct. Adelaide sat on the bench waiting for her savior. Instead, Sergeant O'Malley approached with cuffs. Where's my lawyer? She demanded. Mr. Sterling's withdrawn, O'Malley said. The DA's seen the evidence. You're being transferred. Transferred? She gasped. To the city jail, O'Malley said. Then to Rikers. You can't do this, she cried. Let me give you some advice, O'Malley said. The women on the inside, they don't like people who hurt children. Adelaide began to scream, but no one stopped the transfer. 6 months later, spring had returned to Harlem. Bumpy Johnson sat on his balcony reading the Amsterdam news. The headline, Nanny sentenced to 10 years for child endangerment. May stepped outside, carrying Elise, now toddling, laughing, strong. The fear had faded. The sparkle had returned. May sat beside Bumpy. 10 years, she said quietly. She lost her life, Bumpy replied. She's a ghost now. Elise wobbled over to him and reached up. Dada, she said. Bumpy's heart softened. He lifted her into his lap. We did good, he said. We did what we had to do, May corrected gently. But Ellsworth, we're going to need a cleaning lady. I can't keep up with this apartment. Bumpy smiled. A cleaning lady? Sure. May looked at him serious. Family only, she said. No strangers. No one touches her but us. Bumpy nodded. Family only. They sat in the sunlight, the king and queen of Harlem, holding their princess tight. He kissed Elise's head, breathing in her baby shampoo and laughter. He had faced a monster, and this time, he didn't need bullets. Just truth. You're safe, Bumpy whispered. As long as I'm breathing, you're safe. And for the first time in a long time, he believed it.